Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this professional learning opportunity. Programs to support well-rounded educational opportunities, safe and healthy students, and effective use of technology using Title 4A with Sister Dale McDonald. I am Beth Rosinski, the Marketing Campaign Manager here at NCEA, and I will be facilitating this webinar today. Just a few housekeeping notes as people are joining. Number one, we will be recording the session today. Number two, if you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to use the chat window. We'll be monitoring the questions and we will try to have Sister Dale answer them in the time allotted. Number three, at the end of the session, I will share a link to the online survey in the chat and the instructions on how to receive a certificate of completion for the webinar. Today's presenter, as I mentioned, is Sister Dale McDonald, our Vice President of Public Policy at NCEA. Before I turn it over to her, let us begin in prayer. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Dear Heavenly Father, as we gather here for this webinar, we seek your guidance and blessings. Grant us wisdom to explore avenues that enhance the holistic development of our students, ensuring their well-being, safety, and access to new technologies for effective learning. May our efforts align with your standards, fostering a nurturing environment for Catholic education. Please bless our time together that it may be fruitful and contribute to the betterment of educational experiences. May this webinar be a source of inspiration, collaboration, and innovation in service of our mission to educate and empower the next generation. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
The Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Go ahead, sister.
Thank you. Thank you and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us today for this presentation dealing with Title IV of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, also known as ESSA, Every Student Succeeds Act. This is a look at what we'll be talking about this afternoon. First, I want to say a few words about participation in federal programs, just so we're all on the same page in terms of how it operates. Then we'll look at Title IV, 21st Century Schools. That's the official title, and it has several parts to it. So we'll spend most of our time on Part A, that provides benefits and programs, et cetera, for providing a well-rounded education, for improving school conditions for student learning, which is basically health and safety, and then improving the use of technology. But then we'll also take a look at Part B, which is the 21st Century Learning Centers, and then Part F, which has two sections there that deal with equitable services for private school students and teachers. And one will be Project SERVE, Emergency Response to Violence. And then the supporting high ability learners and learning, which is gifted and talented. And then I will say a few words about the Stronger Connections Act, which is an addition to Title IV. And then if we have time, a few words about consultation and maximizing efforts at increasing our participation rates. So looking at the principles that govern participation of private school students in federal education programs, we look first at the two theories, the child benefit theory and the public trusteeship theory. So under the child benefit, we remember that services are provided to students and teachers, not financial aid to schools. And in the last couple of years, we've taken to really referencing it as equitable services, which is what the law requires, that our students, teachers, personnel are provided with similar equal experiences to that which the public schools are provided with. And under this child benefit theory, the piece we keep reminding everyone of is that services provided must address the needs of private school students and education personnel. In this last reauthorization, the ESSA version of the law, we reference now educational personnel because it's not just teachers. Now principals, assistant principals, some paraprofessionals, and people generally in the school who have some kind of impact on the actual instruction and dealing with the students. So they're all included in what might be available in professional development services. And then public trusteeship, that the LEA, the local education agency, the public school district, however you refer to it in your area, remains in control of funds. They are the fiduciary agent. They expend the funds on our behalf. And we go through a consultation process to develop the plans for how that money will be spent. The services have to be secular, neutral, and non-ideological. And then services must be supplemental and not supplant ordinary school responsibilities. This supplement, not supplant terms are getting more attention from the LEAs in terms of what services you request from the district. The impact here is that all of these programs under the Title 4 and 2, all the rest of them, are really meant to provide additional support services. They enhance the curriculum and enhance the teaching and learning experience. So anything that would be an ordinary school responsibility, like providing textbooks, like providing desks, etc., it cannot be paid for out of title services. So now Title 4, Part A, that part that we're most familiar with, this is the student support and academic enrichment grants. You'll see in the guidance documents and any of the federal pieces that come out, they're usually referred to this section as SSAE. And this part is to improve student academic achievement. That's the focus. And in this section, they focus on the capacity of the states and the districts to provide such supports for students. And it's broken down into 3 pieces: a well-rounded education, improve school conditions for student learning, and that's the environment, a healthy, safe environment, and then improve the use of technology to improve academic achievement and digital literacy of all students. So this is basically a kind of catch-all. This is the part that many of our students, sorry, I messed up here. Okay, sorry, I had slippery mouse here. For our schools, most of what our schools know of Title IV is this part of it, the student support and enrichment grants. This is available for all of our schools, and it's based on, the funding is based on the number of students in proportion to the number of public school students. It's a basic calculation. This section is really a restatement of the programs that some of you have experienced in the past. Under the former versions of the ESEA, they were Title II, III, and V. But during NCLB, they were really not funded. They were always in the law, but they weren't funded. So you might not recognize some of these, but this section reworks some of those old programs. And this was a chance where some of the lawmakers who had interests in programs that were not funded decided to work together to get this like comprehensive bill that kind of rewrote some of the provisions and get the 3 categories as a catch-all for the various things that you can do with Title IV. This program is funded at $1.2 billion, this section. So we're talking here a significant amount of money that we are entitled to have a proportionate share of. So this is just a little bit of procedural items that the SEA and the LEAs have to observe. So they make a point out of ensuring that equitable services are provided for eligible private school students and then the educators, education personnel. I just put in that second bullet point to remind us again, which, you know, as a school community, we're not always conscious of our participation in state level programs. Some of these programs, the district can keep 5–10% of the money. I'm sorry, an SEA can keep 5–10% of the money before they send it out proportionally to the districts, and then run statewide programs. They may do that for children. They frequently do that for adult populations. So they'll create a program, a project. And if they do that, we are able to participate. And it's important during consultation that you deal with the education personnel. Sorry, that you deal with the education personnel at the district and let them know if you are participating in a statewide program, we expect to participate as well and to be included in the planning for those programs. This is where you get a chance to make a program actually work for your students and education personnel, not trying to fit in, but as look back earlier in the whole child benefit theory, that the needs of the student is what drives the program. And so even on a statewide activity, you should be included in the consultation process so that you could actually participate in the program. This third bullet point is, again, just a procedural thing, but if a district gets more than $30,000 in this program, in this part of the program, they have to assure that at least 20% is spent in each of the 3 buckets. That does not apply to our schools in the proportionate share. Once the proportionate share is calculated, then the private school request can be all in one bucket or across the 3 buckets. And so in the Title VIII guidance that came out a couple of months ago, on Section J, there is some clear language about various ways in which this program can be operated successfully by private schools who are participating. And at the end of this document, and you'll get a copy of this presentation if you choose, there is links to petite pieces that I'm looking at. So moving on to a well-rounded education. So what do we mean by a well-rounded education? Here we're talking about an education that provides students with an enriched curriculum and educational experiences to develop skills and knowledge in a wide range of subjects. We're really looking at preparing kids for life. What is it that they need? It's not only academic, but it's also what are some kinds of experiences. And the whole focus here in this part of the bill was to really move beyond math and reading and teaching to the test, really, which is what happened under NCLB when math and reading scores had to reach certain levels in order for the school to be declared proficient and not in need of remediation, et cetera. So there was a lot of backlash to that. Fortunately for our schools, that was really not a problem back during the NCLB times. I mean, we have really prided ourselves on the fact that we are able to provide a well-rounded education. And we've never, for the most part, we've never really stopped dealing with art and music in our schools. You know, even when we do STREAM programs, we don't call them STEM, we call them STREAM usually. We're talking about science and technology, yes, but also about religion as well as reading, about engineering, and then arts, and music, and math, so that we, have focused on the whole child. And this is what they're trying to get everyone to focus on. Here we'll get some extra benefits to be able to provide a well-rounded education, looking at arts, humanities, sciences, social sciences, English, and math. I mean, the basics are still there, but this is, beyond just rote academic achievement. It's including experiences and exposures that help children become better rounded adults that are contributive to society. So in the bill itself, it lists all of the courses, activities, and programs, as you can read here, in almost everything, but a focus, particularly on down about third line, foreign languages, civics and government, economics, art, history, geography, computer science, music, career and technical education, health, physical, and physical education. So in order, beyond that paragraph that has primarily academic pieces, we're looking here at developing skills that would provide students with experiences that nurture aptitude in critical thinking, problem solving, and teamwork. And so the critical thinking skills are part of what makes a well-rounded education. So these are some of the things that you could look at to consider when you're, looking at applying for Title IV funds. Since the focus really of this section is to improve the teacher's ability to provide instruction and guidance for students, then, we could say that a lot of the funds should be used for teacher acquisition of skills. And that would be things like summer workshops, go using some of this funding to go for instruction if you teach AP courses on how to raise, working on getting skills to how to raise the scores. Well, last year we had 42% who scored 3 or higher. We're going to try to work through these courses, see if we can get the achievement rate up to maybe 65%, get 3 or 4 on the AP exam or whatever. So there are various things listed here, as you can read, about particular focus skills, or about developing curriculum to, have not only AP courses, but IB programs into International Baccalaureate, dual enrollment, working on that, and having some ability for kids to take college courses while they're in school, and having some of that for the student provided for through Title IV funding. And then strengthening instruction in particular areas of economics and civics, but also literacy programs, environmental education, and college and career guidance and counseling. Now, as private schools, we cannot hire people with the title money the way they could in public school, but we can request services so that, like you do with Title I, if you've got people coming in to do academic improvement in reading, we may be able to get some of that in counseling and specific instruction for a group of students who would be in need of such, or to do teacher workshops, faculty professional development. Now, the thing, we want to pay attention to is that there are parallels between Title II and Title IV. I mean, this well-rounded educational piece of the program does call for teachers being able to work through what they need to be able to provide these services. But you can't mix it. You can't mix and match. I mean, we've been focusing, and we did Title I earlier, Title II, about pooling of resources, pooling of funds, where a couple of schools can put their money together and have the district or the 2 districts that schools may be in. You can't pool the money across programs. So you can't say, well, we'll use some of Title IV, we'll use some of Title II. No, on your own, you're going to have to try to give some thought to, well, if we want to do this, let's use Title II money. And if we want to do this, even though it's still pre-D, but we have a different focus, then we use Title IV. And, my recommendation is to think of ways in which you can look at all of the needs of the students and of the teachers to meet those needs, and see which ways you can get some of it funded for in Title II and some of it funded in Title IV, so that you're able to maximize the opportunities that the funding could provide if you get a little creative about how you can make it work in both categories. So I hope that's clear to people. You can't pull it and just say, well, we'll throw all the money into this. You can't do that, but you can make use of it separately, but in a sense, coordinated. And then we have the section on safe and healthy students. And basically what you're looking at is to have a safe and healthy school, one that addresses the social and emotional well-being of the students. And within that, they're looking at developing activities and programs that have safe, healthy, supportive, and drug-free environments. So this is a lot of the old Title III that was safe and drug-free schools. A lot of it has come back in, but since that time, since the 2000, early 2000 reauthorization, we're looking at a lot more focus on social emotional health and student mental health issues and student well-being. So what's important is that we keep in mind what we want to develop as part of our faith-based approach to overall student health and well-being, and what can be relegated to particular areas that don't require a moral or faith-based component to it. Because again, services have to be secular, neutral, non-ideological. But by the same token, we have to make sure that what we supplement our curriculum with does not uh, go against what our mission is. So, and our faith tenets are. So you need to be particularly careful for that, with that, when you're looking at counseling services. So I just advise people to try to keep that in mind. Career and college counseling generally keeps you away from some of the more social, personal, moral issues that regular counseling, mental health counseling could deviate from what we say we're about. And it's important to remember that if you have personnel coming in from the LEA to do any of these kinds of services, you are not supervising the people who are doing the service. They are the employees of the LEA. So it's important that you figure out the angles on what is safe territory to bring people in when you're dealing with students in need of emotional and help-based supports. So you can get training for your personnel to be able to provide some of the social emotional learning supports and activities that try to foster the skills that you see there in the second bullet point about self-control, empathy, persistence, and other social behavioral skills. So focusing on teachers being able to do that, or educational personnel, or even your guidance people, is a way in which you can use some of these title dollars. And then programs that support a healthy, active lifestyle. So programs that would deal, in some of the old days, in the old schools, they used to have, hygiene, health and hygiene. How many schools do that anymore? So, there can be workshops. And again, in creating a safe and healthy school, you're looking at the adults as well as the students. This is not all student focused. This is focusing on the mental health, well-being, and social emotional skills of the staff as well as the students. So that the last two bullet points, that has become, we've seen enough in the papers and on the media, about school violence and suicide prevention. Suicide ideation has become more common, unfortunately. So ways in which professional development for personnel, helping to be able to recognize possible indicators of suicide prevention, or suicide ideation, and then prevention, or violence prevention. It's working with the students to recognize signs within themselves or others that there may be problems brewing, but then also working with our staff that they get the help they need to be able to recognize and act. And so, And so, as I said, again, the impetus for creating these kinds of safe and healthy environments, really a lot depends on the education personnel. How is your staff trained in ways to recognize and diffuse dangerous behaviors, and then to create a culture in which they're not tolerated by the kids themselves, that they are able to recognize signs of danger and work to overcome and to change some cultures. And then promoting community and parental involvement in schools. There are ways in which the school can use some of those dollars to create a program, back to school, or some point during the school year, particularly if some trouble has occurred, where you have a parents' night and you bring in a speaker to help parents to know what some of the problems are that may be facing their children, how to deal with them. So, looking at better homeschool relationships, parent to school relationships is a way in which to help provide a concerted effort to keep the culture safe and drug-free. And then in the third section of this part A is the use of effective use of technology. So what this part of the title is looking at is to make sure or to assure, I guess, that teachers are able to effectively integrate technology into the teaching and learning experience. Again, we keep saying it's the teaching and learning experience. It's not just kids, it's not just student, staff, teachers, personnel. It is the school learning, teaching, and learning community. So what the focus of technology is supposed to be is on improving academic achievement, academic growth, and then the digital literacy of all students. So it's not only being able to show academic outcomes through effective use of technology, but also to improve the digital literacy of all students. And that's an area that we may sometimes take for granted. The kids know more, or we think the kids know more about the technology than we do, but it's also how to effectively use that technology. And, I think there are whole areas here opening up for how the school deals with AI, artificial intelligence, and a lot of these AI apps that are now coming in that are being used, sometimes officially in the school curriculum, frequently unofficially, and how to train teachers to spot the ways in which this can be used or misused, and then working with the students that they understand the benefits and the drawbacks, the pitfalls that they can become entrapped in without having some sophistication about how to use these tools. This is all areas where you can, again, get help in having the teachers, the educational personnel being able to address technology. So since, the focus of the program is on the teachers being able to provide a technology-enriched curriculum, the focus is really on that, on using the technology, not on acquiring the technology. And you notice in the third bulletin point, there is a restriction that only 15% of the funding that's the limit for how much you can spend on software and hardware combined. The hardware software is 15%. The rationale here being that there are other ways in which schools can acquire the hardware and the software. Well, yes, to a certain extent. For the public schools, there is generally some state money, some local district money. There's public money that they may be able to access that we can't. For our schools, the technology piece is mostly privately funded by the school or benefactors, but there are lots of opportunities using the E-rate program, which the school can use to support broadband access and use. So you need to be looking at the various ways in which the curriculum gets enhanced because the staff knows how to use it effectively. And so whether, you're looking at innovative strategies for delivery of specialized or rigorous academic courses, and it's not just computer technology courses, coding and all of that, which yes, is part of what this program could provide, but also within the ordinary curriculum, how do you make some extraordinary opportunities available for kids beyond what the school could just supply or using the resources it has? So using any of these, digital technologies is part of what we're being called to look at with the program. And so they list here activities. This part of the slide is all taken from the law itself. And then they move that into regulations and into guidance. But Professional development, again, we notice so much is going into all of Title IV, focusing on how the adults help students. So they make a particular note on long distance, and this part of the bill was written before COVID, before we really moved into the whole distance learning process. I mean, when this was written, distance learning was a sort of new thing on the horizon for some populations, and then it moved into high gear during the pandemic. And thanks to so many people like you out there and your staff and teachers that went above and beyond in adapting to digital learning throughout that whole pandemic. We know from the NAEP scores, our schools stepped up, our schools kept our kids on track, and it really goes to, a lot of it goes to the willingness of our staffs to adapt to and make use of the digital technologies. So technologies that had to be used at that time. So it's really a compliment to us that we were so flexible and adaptable. But now it's how do we go beyond that even more as newer technologies advance. So this is what we're looking at in terms of Title IV-A. So that's the bulk of what Title IV-A is looking at. Again, I say, please remember that some of this can be used in conjunction with some of the aims of Title I, II, and III, and that you can continue to build on some of those other programs separately, but in conjunction with. So that's the Part A of the program. Then there is a Title Part B, 21st Century Learning Centers, Community Learning Centers. And this is a competitive grant process that some large entities will receive during a year. This is a direct process working with the feds, not your state. And so it is a very comprehensive program, and you can see there that the goal is to try to provide learning processes beyond the school day for students, but that also involve community participation. They're looking at the primary focus in the grant, if one is applying for a grant, is a low achieving population, but it can include others in the program as well, and that including others would be children who are in our schools. And it also, if you notice, the third, families of children served by it. And as we go through this part of the program, I'll point out a couple of ways in which this moves in a direction that we might want to consider. So the kinds of things that are available to do with these 21st century grants are listed here. These are programs that are, the grant is like 2 or 3 years duration, and sometimes can be renewed again. And we're talking here about after school, summer school programs that are using the resources, some of the school resources and some of the local community resources. And so when we look at the kinds of activities that are listed here, we say that it kind of feeds into creating well-rounded student educational opportunities, as well as safe and healthy, and then the technology part of the STEM curriculum pieces that they want to support. So what is different from some of the other after-school programs is that schools have to partner with in-demand fields of the local workforce or build career competencies and career readiness, so that when you're looking at these programs, you're trying to get in these after-school enrichment activities or summer school beyond just childcare. It's not a childcare program. It is a program that's working toward creating opportunities for kids that will be lifetime enriching experiences. And As I mentioned, this is a competitive grant program. So this is the only program in NCLB in which the private school could be, or a diocese, could be a direct recipient of federal funds. If you apply, you become a direct recipient of federal funds. The applicant has to be basically a consortium. One may lead, but it's a consortium of like museums, libraries, civic groups, YMCA, the YWCA, some of the other, community services, the Red Cross. It could be a variety of things. And a Catholic school or diocese. Years ago, one of our dioceses did apply. They created a separate corporation and applied and received one of these grants, and then worked with the local, working with the local community to provide these kinds of services for students that included both public and private school students. If you are in an area of a state or a LEA that's applying for one of these grants, you are supposed to be included in the planning process. And that's so that the actual activities that are developed are things that would serve your students. And your students can participate in any of these programs that are in the area in which the school is located. There are limits to how many participate. It's based on, the per pupil allotment that would be considered under the grant. You don't need all that right now, but the point I think that's important is that in trying to be part of the planning for this grant, you may be able to have like 3 sites are going to be part of this program that, this LEA is going to run. You can work into the planning process. Well, our school here, this St. Stephen's School, has all of these facilities. Why not make this one of the 3 sites? And so then the LEA with the grant would rent your after-school program, and it would be part of the grant, but you would not be the lead agent. Your school would not be the beneficiary of the fund directly, so that so there are ways you can do it. For the most part, most of our schools or dioceses would not enter into actually applying for the grant. But keep in mind that if one of these programs is going on in the public school nearby, maybe that would be an after-school enrichment activity that you want to look into obtaining for your students. I'm trying to see here. Title 4B will only apply to low-performing schools. What about strong schools who have a segment of its population? Yes, depending on, again, you're not applying for this just for your school. If it's a grant, it includes all of the eligible people in that district, so that it's not just applying as a school. You're applying as a community organization for schools within the community, so that the focus on the grant is for primarily low achieving students. Others can be part of it, but you're looking at not just your own students, but students in the public school area surrounding that would be part of eligibility to participate in that grant. So I hope that makes that clear. So unfortunately, a lot of our schools don't make an effort to participate in this program. Now, there's only a couple of these a year that are available. But if they are, it's a wonderful opportunity for kids to be able to achieve, higher levels of social, emotional, as well as academic experiences that work with a community to provide a more enriching environment for kids, particularly those who don't get those opportunities at home, that don't have, families that can take them to a museum, that can take them to the zoo, that can take them, for various pieces. So it's something to look into when you go for consultation. Ask, is there a 21st century community school grant out there that we could apply for, apply to be part of? For some reason, Okay, so that's part of 21st century. Then there's the Project SERVE. This is the School Emergency Response to Violence. This is looking at trying to restore the learning environment to students, schools that have been impacted by some kind of violence. And that's both higher ed, colleges and universities, as well as schools in an area that has been impacted by some pretty violent incident. And we're talking here about traumatic incidences that disrupt the learning environment. And you can be considered for equitable services if you're in an area that had a trauma, which could include shootings or other violent instances, suicides of students or faculty members, some natural disasters, hurricanes, floods, wildfires, but this is not for reconstruction. I mean, that's, this is to try to provide the mental health services, social emotional support, so students feel safe coming back into the learning environment. So it's not construction and facilities rehabilitation. It is rehabilitation really of the learning environment, that students feel that it's safe and healthy. So, this would depend on the circumstances under which the whole violence had played out. So if it happens in your school, that's one thing. If you are in a school that's down the block from, that's somewhere near, or has a connection of sorts to that school environment that has your kids upset, worried, afraid to come to school, whatever, your staff equally, traumatized by, well, the shooting was here, it could easily have been here, so that they may need some help. And so help getting the emotional environment, one in which people feel safe and are ready and willing to learn and teach. And so the circumstances may be different, whether it's direct hit or a close proximity to it. And that's all part of what you have to talk with the LEA about if they get a Project SERVE grant. Again, it's discretionary. They may only extend it to a certain area. And this is not there's not a limit set on this. This is part of an overall response that they will provide funding for. It's different from FEMA. Okay, so FEMA is where you deal with the physical stuff that would rehabilitate the environment physically. So then equitable services under Project SERVE. Again, this is pretty much what I just talked about the kinds of services that will be provided, again, through the LEA to be able to restore the learning environment. So for people like the recent fires in Hawaii, this possibility to if the school gets up and rebuilt, that kind of thing, to provide services. Or if the students have to go to another school and there's still an environment that's not productive for the student to be in and needs counseling, there's some of that you can get there. Then Title IV, Part F, this subpart, supporting high ability learners and learning. And this is basically the old gifted and talented program. This is where you're trying to create programs to identify gifted and talented and meet their special needs. Of course, everyone thinks the child is gifted and talented, but there are parameters in which that is defined and so on. What the grant provides for is ways in which schools can establish in programs, summer or mentoring or peer tutoring, so on, to have gifted and talented students, particularly those who are in regular classrooms and are, finished with everything before everybody else just about gets started and so on, that they have other things that will help to enrich their learning experiences, keep them from getting bored, and really working with the talent they have to be able to move beyond to just a regular classroom instruction. This one's a little iffy in terms of our participation. This is what the law says. That in making the grants and entering into contracts, the secretary, meaning the Secretary of Education, shall, where appropriate, provision is made for equitable participation of students and teachers in private, nonprofit, elementary and secondary schools, including personnel. Bottom line is, we always think it's appropriate for us to participate in programs that are provided for similarly situated students and education personnel. So this is something that we don't hear a lot about, but this is something that, again, should be part of the consultation process. What are the pieces of Title IV? And are there gifted and talented programs? Does the district have funding to engage in this? And therefore, how do we go about securing our equitable services? And then lastly, in terms of Title IV, the Stronger Connections program. Right after the school shootings at Uvalde and then the attempts to try to, get through some kind of modified gun control and various things that were surfacing at the time, Congress passed what they call the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. And in that, they created the Stronger Connections program. And what they did was to take $1 billion, an additional $1 billion, and allocate that to Title IV. But and that was to be used to help schools with a safer and healthier learning environments. However, when the thing got actually enacted and then worked through the Department of Ed and the guidance and the regulations and the guidance, it became not a component piece of Title IV, but an accompaniment piece, in the sense that the federal government split that $1 billion up among all the states and territories, and then said to the SEAs, have a competitive grant process with your LEAs, focusing on the schools that are in receiving more high needs, schools that are high needs, and then have a program in effect that will try to address those in these Stronger Connections, through this Stronger Connections program. So basically, a couple of districts in each state got some of this money to try to provide for a safe and healthy environment for the kids. The focus was really on mental health, safety and mental health, more than some of the other aspects of what that part of the program refers to. Many states still have not announced what they're doing with that money in terms of what districts get it. But it's important. I mean, if a district gets money, there's quite a bit of money in that program, depending on the size and the number of students, et cetera. But trying to, find out first, is there a grant given to your district? And then how are you planning to use that? How can we be part of the planning process so that we are able to participate effectively? And there is slight wiggle room in this program to be able to try to get some not permanent hardware that helps to provide a safe environment. If the school is not safe or perceived to be safe and secure, the learning environment is one in which students may not feel safe and may not be able to apply themselves, particularly following a violent incident in a nearby school. Or their own, but primarily in a nearby school is the way we see this playing out. So it's important to ask the district, has the state dispensed the Stronger Connections program money? Have you applied for a grant? And are you going to apply for a grant? And so some of you may be able to work through this kind of a program and get some help in providing a more secure environment. And that's, first and foremost, is physical safety for kids. And then, because you can do a lot of work on the mental health, but if the building isn't safe, you're not achieving the end of the program. So I'll stop there on the 4 pieces of the program, but then look at a reminder again of the consultation requirements. That when you go for the consultation, the district has to go through these points here about how the program will work, and they have to do that before they make any decisions, during the design, development, and implementation of the program. It's not first day you come in, you sign in, they say, here's what you're going to get. We've consulted, goodbye. There is a whole process that's supposed to be in place, and you're at the end, that's after the design, development, implementation. Then you sign the consultation agreement that says, yes, we are satisfied with the consultation, or no, we feel the consultation was not done because they skipped this, and this. And there are requirements in the consultation process that that is an important piece of the guidance document at the end on Title 8. It reiterates again the various aspects of the consultation. It says the goal is to reach agreement. That's supposed to mean something. And so when you go for the consultation, the things to keep in mind are that they have to listen and give due consideration to the views of the private school official. And this is where I think we need to pay a lot more attention to what they do or don't do regarding those 2 points. Do they listen to you and give you a chance to state what your needs are, how you feel that would best be implemented through this program to improve your student achievement? And did they give due consideration to that? So that if they decide to do something that does not seem to work for your students, you can document they did not give due consideration to our views. We outline the various reasons why it would not be good to transfer all of our Title II money into Title I. They didn't listen to us. They didn't give due consideration. They said, we're doing it. And so these are things, A, that you get the ombudsman involved in to try to resolve, or if it doesn't get resolved in a way that's just and fair, then you can file a formal complaint. So these are pieces of the consultation agreement that you should have with you, the consultation requirements that you should have with you when you go to do some of the consultation processes throughout the year. So I'll just refer again to the section in the consultation section in the guidance. And then some tips for maximizing participation. I do this in all the workshops, basically have the necessary data with you. If you need child counts, make sure you have them. If you need poverty counts, make sure you have them. So you go in and you say to the district personnel, this is from the consultation requirements. I have these things that are required, and then establish personal contact. We know that it's an ongoing process of engaging, and the better the relationship, obviously, the better the outcome. To be proactive, don't wait for them to say, do you want to participate? If you haven't heard from them by April, you tell them, I'm interested, we want the intend to participate form, and then you go from there. And then, being flexible, make active use of the programs, especially, as I said earlier, those that overlap between 2, 3, and 4 particularly, and then know your rights. And that's what's really important. All of these programs are based on what are the needs of the students? How will the teachers and education personnel be able to address those needs using these title dollars? End of story. And so I have listed here these documents that will help you to actually begin the process of effective consultation for Title IV. This first one, the guidance, support, and academic, this came out right after the program was first put into place, trying to give people some indication of what kind of programs you can do in Title IV. It doesn't specifically reference private schools, but there are examples in there and situations that are replicable for us. And then Title VIII, I've mentioned this, if you've been part of this series, the Title VIII guidance that finally came out a couple of months ago. And that has all of the, particulars that might be something the district isn't sure of in the guidance, and that's section J for the Title IV pieces. So, there are, again, in that first document, creative ways in which you can try to use some of these funds. And then the Q&As and the second document are really the pieces that help you to figure out the best possible outcome for the private school participation. And again, when you go for consultation, frequently we hear the person you're dealing with at the district hasn't gotten the information. The feds talk to the state talks to the superintendent, and the superintendent's supposed to talk to all the people in the office. And sometimes in the changeovers, the documents get lost. The people coming in have never heard of this or that. You're the one that may have to educate the LEA to how this works. And so I have here my contact information, my email. We have information on the public policy website and my phone. My job is to help you navigate these programs to make sure that what's due our students and teachers is able to be accessed for them. And so I'm happy to help if you have questions. I don't see, Beth, do we have any additional questions?
We do have one more question that came in. You only have about 1 minute, but I'll read it to you to answer, okay?
Okay.
It says, we're always told that Title IV funds were rolled into another fund. This year they said it's rolled into Title I. Is this allowed? How do we tell if we are receiving our proportionate share when they are rolled together?
Okay. Rolling is not the legal term. The legal term is transferability. And yes, unfortunately, the law does allow that a district can transfer some or all of the money from 2, 3, or 4 into Title I, and some districts are doing that. This is where, back up a couple of minutes ago, where I said you need to talk about how do you inform the district of your needs, what your students' needs are, and how do you have them hear you, and how do you have them respect? No, if you transfer all of that money to Title IV, then this, and this is not possible for my students. We're not equitably sharing that money. Now, you may not win, but my contention is, and more and more I'm telling people to do this. Tell them you're going to file a complaint that they did not listen, and give due respect, due consideration to your wishes for how you can best help your children succeed. And, we may not get it this time, but, I'm looking toward building a groundswell of, if you want, of issues like that we need to address in the next iteration. Under NCLB, they could transfer up to 20%. This time around, it said all or some. And if the money gets transferred, the whole project goes. So then there's no Title IV money, there's only Title I. And yes, you can participate in Title I, but only some kids who live in an eligible attendance area who are in danger of failing, they can participate, which means all the other thousands of kids in your district can participate in that old Title IV money that went over, but maybe 40 kids can participate. That's not equitable. And so this is something that I'm trying to, start building a case for. But yes, unfortunately, they can take all of 2, 3, or 4 and move it into Title I. And for some districts, they do. It's, well, then we only have to do the paperwork for one. We only have to do the paperwork and the accountability for Title I, because all the money's thrown in there. And if they have school-wide programs, all the schools that are 40% or more of low income, then they get, they can spend the money however they want to spend it, which is unfortunate. So yes, thank you for bringing that up. I was trying to be subtle in the listen to your complaints and your needs and give due consideration, but this is clearly an example in which you want to document that case. Anything else?
No, that's it, Sister Dale. That's the only one. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone who attended today's webinar. At NCEA, we continually strive to improve the quality of our services for our members. I dropped the link to a survey in the chat. It's a short survey. It should only take about 5 minutes to complete. If you are interested in a certificate of attendance, please include your email address and your name at the end of the survey. The certificate will be sent via automated email, so please check your spam if you do not see an email within a few minutes. And if you have any questions, always feel free to reach out either to Sister Dale or to one of us at nceamarcom@ncea.org. Thank you, everyone. God bless.
Thank you all. Have a pleasant rest of your day. Bye now.